So without further ado, I will do, it's split into 3 parts. I will do the introduction, and then Melissa and Catherine, between them, are going to talk about experience of completing the registry. And then we're going to do a bit of a Q&A at the end, which is also where we will try and develop some kind of top tips, what we think helps. Okay, so meanwhile, what I'm going to do is, as we run through the slides, I will describe the slides as well, so that you know what slide I have up, which is the 3rd slide. And this is just a very big warm welcome to whoever's here tonight. And it's a picture of the 3 of us. It has Melissa on there. Melissa is a trustee of AS UK, and Catherine Lewis, who is our office manager and also our kind of IT specialist and everything else. And then in the center is me with my kind of new role, developing some of our global network and links for families and professionals, clinicians and academics. So the reason that we're doing this webinar is to both promote and help people complete the registry and understand a little bit of the background to it. The reason AS UK invested 2 years ago in trying to build a patient registry is because there's lots of missing pieces. So, for example, in the UK, we have a fairly detailed database that has information about all of those patients known to us. And that has been built up over many years. And the reason we have so much data and information is because AS UK accompanies and helps organise annual clinics for every patient. So therefore, we either see or the clinicians see patients every year. Now, I'm excluding the pandemic because we've been doing more telemedicine, but it means that we are in contact with all of those patients known to us. And that number is about 87 at the moment. Where there's a clinical trial or there's a pharma company interested in a clinical trial, lots of the thinking behind the registry is to ensure that we're kind of ready for a trial. Excuse me. So often referred to as kind of clinical trial ready, that all the basic information is kept in one place. We wanted to try, therefore, to reach out globally and try and gather as much information from people with Ulstrom and their families to make it as easy as possible for any researcher who is interested in Ulstrom. Excuse me. So really that's the purpose of it.
So we obviously started the patient registry, as Anne was saying, to kind of build that worldwide picture of Ulstrom syndrome and really look into the kind of global knowledge and understanding, and so we could learn more, really, and particularly for such an ultra rare condition, having a database and a patient registry where clinicians and researchers could go to really look at that information and hopefully look at insights into further research and further treatments into the future, and really to understand Ulstrom better, which I think is, you know, what we all want at the end of the day, isn't it? And a lot of the information, well, all of the information is anonymized, so the researchers and the clinicians can have a look at the data relating to the condition, but not necessarily personal information about yourself. And it's really also about establishing that network between clinicians and health professionals and researchers so that they can further develop those treatments and the research developments into such a rare condition. And hopefully in the future we'll be able to provide better treatments and management of Ulstrom syndrome going forward, and really to improve our knowledge and understanding. So myself and Melissa not so long ago actually went through and completed the patient registry together. So we just wanted to talk a little bit about particularly Melissa's experience of it, so that hopefully we can encourage you to do the same, really, and really understand why it is so vital that we can gather as much information about this ultra rare condition as possible. So first of all, CORDS is the organisation that holds all the information. It's actually an American company, and it holds all the information for the Rare Disease Registry. And what they have, first of all, for you to complete is a screening form, and it's very simple for you to complete. It literally is asking who you are, if you're the patient who's going to be completing the patient registry, or if you're going to be completing it for somebody who's under 18, so your child, for instance. And all it asks is some basic contact information, the condition, the diagnosis that you have or your child has, and then consenting, just to say that you're happy to be part of the patient registry. And once that form is submitted, you will then get some login information. So until then, you won't be able to get into it, really. So once that the first forms are done, you can then get your login details. So once it's been confirmed, you'll then get a username that's auto generated, so you won't be able to change that. But once you get into the account, you can create your own password, and you can go in and select a security question and answer as well, so that you can make your information as really secure for you, so something that you'll remember. Now, I know, Melissa, when you completed it and we did the first screening information, and then you got that login information, how straightforward a process did you find that?
So I think that the first part of that process was it was all compatible with screen reader, so I could use my phone. I think where I struggled was remembering, even though, you know, it's very clearly sets out it's American, I didn't kind of factor that in, that you put in your birth date differently, you know, you write the numbers differently, and I think that stumped me a bit, because I was putting my birthday in and it was just not accepting me. But once I'd worked out that part, that the first initial process was quite simple, and I liked that it asked you whether it was very clear which professionals would access the medical information, how your information was going to be used. And I really liked the fact that it asked you that question about consent. So it was a real, you could make it a real, you know, actually think, who would I like to have, and kind of agree to the process. So I thought actually it was quite straightforward. You know, it's maybe better to do on a laptop or a computer, but actually using VoiceOver on an iPhone, I managed that part quite well.
Great. And thank you for reminding me of that. You know what, that was a little bit of a stumbling block for us in the UK particularly. I remember when it first got launched, I had a lot of phone calls and emails about why their information wasn't being accepted. And you've reminded me it was because of the because CORDS is the information is held in America, that obviously their dates are the other way around, so the month and the year is swapped. So it's just remembering that if you are completing it in the UK, that some of the dates need to be shifted to the American model rather than us here in the UK. And it's nice to hear that you did find it very, very clear. And as you say, with the consent, it will ask you about who you are happy to share that information with. And the first part of the registry, once you're able to get access, you've got your login details, you've got your password, and all that's been set up, you'll then have access to the first part of the registry. And this is kind of the easy bit. It's very much around your contact information, and your date of birth and your name, your kind of personal information, really. So the first bit is really all about that section. And once that section's completed, then you can get into the into all the information about how Alström syndrome relates to you, how the condition really relates to you. And there's a whole host of different questions around that. So once you'd completed your sort of the basic information, like the contact information, and you're able to get into those sort of the Alström side of things, how did you find all that process went, Melissa?
So I think when I first looked at it and I saw there were like 86 questions, I kind of thought that there were a lot of questions there. But I think like the beauty of actually having your username and login details is, had I have thought of that, hindsight's brilliant. If I'd have thought in hindsight, I'd have maybe given myself a set number of questions each day. But I think what I wanted to do it independently. So what I did, I had a chat with my parents beforehand and kind of asked about some of my early years experience. So what happened, like, is the word prenatal? I don't know if I made that word up.
No, that's good.
Oh, good. So like what happened prenatal, what happened postnatal. I had a chat, probably more with my mum than my dad, to be fair, about what happened and when. And she gave me a really good chronology of like my early years and took me up to, you know, obviously when I became an adult, I was more aware of, you know, it wasn't just, oh, I'm just going to a hospital appointment. Like I kind of like, this is for eyes, this is card, you know, you get that knowledge. So we actually created a timeline together, from getting pregnant to the present day. And we actually beforehand we marked down some sort of significant medical events. So I had a good idea in my head, like when those things had happened, when like certain medications got introduced. So I did that beforehand. And then because I wanted to do it kind of independently, I thought, actually, this is a lot to fill in on an iPhone, because before I had a laptop, so I thought this is quite a lot to fill in. So I asked Catherine for some support. So what we did, I phoned Catherine and we went through the form together. So Catherine would read me the questions and then I'd give my responses. She'd fill it in and kind of read just to double check that it was, you know, it was a reflection of what I'd said. And we went through it like that, and we actually got it all done in one go, I think. And it didn't take, I think it maybe took about an hour. But the beauty of the registry is you can actually fill it in at your leisure almost. You don't, I mean, once I get something started, I like to finish it. But if it's like, oh, let me do all the hard questions, you know, let me take this bit by bit, it's divided, if I remember it rightly, it's kind of divided into health issues, and you've got the space to write about each of those things. So had I wanted, I could have written about like my eyesight and then logged out and come back another day and then done hearing and done it like that. And actually, if I hadn't have been so impatient, I could have actually done it really at my pace. And I think that's kind of the beauty of the registry. You've got that choice, let's sit down and get it done, or let's take our time. And I think if I'd have done it with my parents because of their work commitments, I probably would have done it in bits so that they weren't doing it all at once, so we had time to go through it together. But that, I think, was one of the strengths. But you know, saying that, I could have filled it in myself. What I liked about this form is that all of the form boxes were really accessible with voiceover. It was a case of different text fields, and the phone was really clear at telling me where they were. So had I wanted to, I could have filled it in completely independently.
Great. And I think that's a really good tip there, actually, that what you kind of started with was, before even completing the registry, was actually getting all that background information. So rather than sitting down and thinking, oh, crikey, I haven't got, you know, all of the information that I want, particularly like you said, for those early years, which the registry is a little bit of kind of a delve into the history of you as well, isn't it? So it's kind of taking that journey. So as you say, there's lots of questions that you might think, oh, actually, I'm not sure about that. So being able to, you know, quiz your family, particularly your mum, to be able to gain some of those insights before sitting down and completed it, I think really helped. And as you say, it's the beauty of it is you can save it as you go. So you can do little chunks, or as we did, we kind of sat down and were like, right, come on, let's, you know, get it done together. And we got through it, as you say, in about an hour, but it may take people longer, you know.
I think it does. I think it is really like how thorough you want to be as well. I liked that it didn't give you pressure of having like, this is an essay that you need to write on your vision, or this is a heart essay. You know, it was as much detail as you feel comfortable to write. And I suppose what you could do as well, we didn't write we talked through, you know, we did it audially, but you could actually kind of maybe even write down do bullet points on a Word document and maybe even copy and paste across as you're doing it. So that could even maybe you can save a bit of time somewhere down the line. I mean, like me and computers, like we like each other sometimes. So I don't know if I'd have chosen that, but I guess that's something else you could do to kind of save yourself time a little bit and not have to kind of keep checking back. But yeah, I really liked that kind of really flexible kind of take it at your own pace nature of the patient registry.
Yeah, definitely. As you say, you've got the flexibility there, and if you've got other commitments, you can get going with it. And as you say, if technology isn't playing ball that day, it's like, well, actually, I can do a little bit, and then I don't have to get frustrated that I'm going to lose the last 20-30 minutes of work because something's playing up. So you've got that that save button, which is great, so you can come back to things, which is always really helpful. And also what we did when we first set it up was I think we call them guidelines, but really it's kind of top tips which we brought together after we'd done all the questions. So there are 86 questions, as Melissa said, which does sound an awful lot, but actually they're all categorized really nicely, so you can kind of choose the bits that you want to complete and the bits that you might want to come back to at your own pace, really, just like Melissa was saying, sort of the beauty of it, which you can do. And we set up some of these guides, so literally in our guide as well, which we can send across to you, is all of the questions. So you can actually, before even going on, you could have a look through that and use your screen reader to read them all out, and we've put some top tips next to them if you're thinking, oh, actually I'm not quite sure what that question means. We've put some ideas in there of how you to complete. So actually, just like Melissa was saying, you could actually complete it all onto a Word document if you found that easier, and then pasting it into it after the fact. So it is very much around what you find the easiest way to complete it, really. And we've tried to do, as I say, some guidance, and I'm always here as well. So just like Melissa did, she was able to do bits herself, and then thought, actually, I feel that having somebody read it out to me and type it in would actually be a lot easier as well. So we are here to be able to support you with that, because we obviously want as many people to complete the patient registry as possible. And it's also a good way of keeping all your medical information all in one place. So, so you're not having to think back to when maybe, your sight loss was deteriorating, or maybe you had some heart issues. It can be your sort of database, your filing cabinet as such, of all your medical information as well, which you can get hold of all in one place. And we do normally like to say that it's good to keep it updated on an annual basis, but it's kind of in your own time as well. If things have changed, if your medicines have changed, or if something's happened that's changed with your symptoms, to go on and maybe just update it as and when, I think is probably the easiest as you go along. And all the information that is on there is all anonymized. So once, if clinicians and researchers do get in touch, the information they will get will be anonymized data. So they won't have any personal information which relates to you. It will all just be about the condition. And it's all confidential. So it's only shared with those people who you choose. So that's always very important to remember. Did you find that really reassuring, Melissa, when you were completing? Because it's a lot of information to put on there, a lot of personal information, a lot of medical information. So did that reassure you?
It really did, yeah. And I think it's really important to say, like we said, it was 86 questions, but it didn't feel like 86 questions. It all felt very, like it flowed very nicely from one thing to the next. So you were like, oh my God, I'm only on like 25. What's going to happen? You felt it was all a really organic process. And I felt in some of the questions towards the end, which are more about lifestyle, I sometimes have a tendency to tidy up the messy edges of life and maybe not be as honest as I should be. But with it being all confidential, I actually felt that I could be completely honest about my life and my lifestyle. Sometimes like how much exercise, you're like, oh, I do loads, and in actual fact you do some. Do you know what I mean? So it gave me that kind of great, nobody's going to know who it is, but something I really liked as well. And the thing that really got me to complete the registry was actually, as was said earlier in the presentation about painting that picture of Ulstrom. giving clinicians and researchers something to work with and work from, and kind of build on that research for the future, was something that really made me want to complete the registry. So that's kind of why I did it at first. But actually, it's really handy, because I don't know what things are like for you, Palmer, or people around the world, but when I'm in a doctor's appointment, oh, what medication are you on, Melissa? And I'm always a bit like, the names I have for them at home are not the medical names. It's like the evil one, the one that's the minty one, you know, stuff like that. They're not the proper terms. So actually, before I do those like big appointments where I know my brain's going to fuzz a little bit, I go on my patient registry. I go down to my medication table. I did, we did that all bit by bit, like things that I wasn't sure of. Catherine said, I'll go away, like find out what the name, you know, double check what the name of that is, or double check what the dose of that is. So I know everything on there is accurate, and I have a little read through before my big appointment. So like the proper names kind of stick in my head, and I can memorize the dosages and things. So it actually gives me a lot more independence and autonomy when I'm having kind of real-time doctor's appointments. So not only I kind of think like, well, I'm doing my bit for kind of research, and I'd really like people to understand more about the syndrome, but actually it really helps me, not on a day-to-day, because I'm not the doctors every day, thank goodness, but it really helps me in those stressful situations where I know that I'm probably not going to get all the names right. It's been really useful.
Great. I'm glad that it's had more of a use than obviously the clinical research side of it, but actually you to be able to use it on a day-to-day basis is great to hear, really, that you know, it is like that huge filing cabinet that we've said before, that you're able to collate all that information and keep it all in one place. And, you know, for such a complex condition, it's a great way of storing all that information. So it's one less thing to have to think and worry about, really.
And I just think it's great as well. I sometimes feel that a lot of my life is governed by like how I'm feeling or what's going on, and actually this was something that I could do completely independently. Like even my choice to get Catherine to fill it in with me was my choice completely. And you know, we were all told you can have as much or as little help as you want, and it was actually, so sometimes with medical situations, those medical professionals take over, and you're in the room, but like that's all, you're just in the room and you're not part of the process. And I think the patient registry does really encourage you to be part of your process. It gets you to kind of take a proactive look. And for me, it came at a time where a proactive look at what was happening was exactly what I needed to kind of actually, let's understand everything and let's see, you know, what's helping what. So I actually think it's a really good tool as well to kind of get a bit of independence back and to kind of feel in control of that medical process, because with Ulstrom it is a lot of medical processes, and I think it can be easy to feel like overwhelmed and just people are doing things to you, which they are, but you know, for a good reason. But having that control in the patient registry actually really helped my, not just, you know, going to the doctors knowing what I was taking, but it also helped my mental well-being as well, giving me that feeling of independence, that feeling of control, which I think sometimes can be missing from like medical experiences.
Melissa, that was really helpful. Thank you, because you've really explained some of the benefits in particular. I'm going to ask a more personal question, which is, what age range are you in, Melissa?
Very personal. I'd love to say 18. I can say 18 to 30, can't I?
Yeah.
I am actually 30, so I'm at the very top of that range. But at the time, I was comfortably in 18 to 30. That was,
yeah.
It was nice. And I do think even if you were at the younger end of that age range, I don't think that the language in it is very relatable. It's very accessible. So I didn't have to be like, Catherine, what does this mean? Please decode it for me. I understood the questions. And Catherine, so I think as well, if you're doing it with someone else, it's really important that they give you time to process that question. And Catherine was brilliant at, sometimes when I gave an answer, like, do you want to add anything? And she always read back my answer. So it was like, this is what you said, I've typed it down verbatim. Do you want to add anything else? Does that capture what, you know, does that capture that exactly? And that was really beneficial to me as well, because sometimes I say stuff and I really don't remember saying it. So I don't, maybe I say too much, I don't know why, but it was really good to give me that clarification and to actually like write some, like, again, I think sometimes our voice can be lost in the midst of all the medical stuff, and it was a great tool for promoting my voice relating my medical conditions, my medication in a way that was true to me. So I really like the freedom that you kind of have. I'm making it sound like mine was really, really a work of art. It's just not.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important for us to remember that when it was developed with Cords, this university in the States, is we had people with Ulstrom as part of that development to ensure the language. And of course, you know, we've got difference between American English and English, but to ensure the language was accessible to, you know, as many people as is possible. At the moment, it isn't in another language. I think there's a hope that some of it's translatable, but at the moment it is in English, and some of that is a little American, but we try to ensure that having people helping to develop it who have Ulstrom and may have, you know, some visual loss or some hearing loss, just to ensure that it was doable, because form filling is very difficult. So to try and make it as simple as possible. So I'm pleased that kind of the progress that you made with it was very fast and that you found it accessible too. And thank you very much for your time tonight. It's always a pleasure to be seen and listening and hearing what you're up to. And it's always a great forum to generate ideas. So thank you very much for that. And I shall see you at the next one.
All right.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Yeah, lovely to meet you guys again. Take care.
Perfect.
You too. Bye.
Bye.
Good
Thank
night.
you.